Okay, so my name is Stella. I'll start on my presentation. It's still on progress, but I'll show you a bit of what I'm doing currently. So I'm looking at the application of using remote sensing in monitoring drought. One of my major case studies is the southern area. My major comparison is the looking at comparing optical and radar remote sensing and how it can be very effective in drought monitoring events. So my index that I've been able to use, Sentinel-2, as most of you have used, that's the NDVI. Then for Sentinel-1, I've been reading various literatures, and according to my NDVI, I was able to use the backscatter intensity, that's VH and BB, in both of them. So I'll go directly into my analysis that's ongoing. So I picked out two major seasons that were very, very drought, experienced drought. That's the period of 2018, 2019, around the period of May to around the period of October. And so those two seasons, I'll show you a comparison about the two analyses. And I've been reading a lot of literature on why they differ and how we can improve on our analysis. So the first time frame was around 2018 May and 2019 June. So you can see there was a little bit of decrease, especially the green vegetation area. Then when I looked at their NDVI, it really didn't show, okay, it showed much difference, but not really much as compared to other time frames that I selected. This is still using, it was actually Landsat 8. Then when I selected the same time frame of 2018 where it experienced extreme drought experiences, that's between around July and around October of the same year, then you could see actually there was an extreme drought in that particular area. And so it will be quite interesting when you compare Sentinel Landsat 8 and Sentinel-1 in both of them. So when I did it with Landsat 8, there was quite a lot of decrease, especially in the vegetated areas. And a lot of these are caused by the extreme climate change that are occurring. And number two, a lot of human interference in that particular area. Then I picked around the same area, different months, that's around July 2019 and 2018. And you could see actually there was extreme drought and there were rocky patches. So when you use Sentinel-2, it's our Landsat 8 or optical data, it's easy to see the differences and especially the reflection. However, such like bare surfaces such as rocky patches, they look like rocky patches is here, but actually they have small vegetation that can actually be seen when you use Sentinel-1. And so when I used Sentinel-2, it showed that there was actually a total decline in that particular month. However, an interesting analysis came out with Sentinel-1, which I will show currently. So I'll spend quite a lot of time here. When I used Landsat 8, you could see variation, especially at the beginning. You could see that the red patches area appeared very green in Landsat 8. And the reason is because of the spectral capability of Landsat 8. It only takes things that are really good. So the appearance is also either on the leafy areas or the vegetated areas. However, the areas that appeared rocky show that there were presence of presence of vegetation in Landsat 8. However, in Sentinel-1, the red areas are the rocky patches or the rocky areas. And so at that particular point, it shows a decline when I use Sentinel-1. In the same time frame, actually, I focused a lot on 2018, 7th and 10th, whereby in Landsat 8, it showed a huge decrease. However, in Landsat 7, in Sentinel-1, there was decrease in both seasons. And so one of the interesting capabilities are trying to understand why is it that in Landsat 8, we can actually see a greater decrease compared to Landsat 8. The areas that are red remain red in Sentinel-1. And in Landsat 8, we couldn't see that. And I realized the capability of using Sentinel-1 and the capability of using Landsat 8 optical were different. So if you look back here at this particular time, let me just show you something. This is what stood out for me. If you look at this particular season, a lot of regions here were very, very green. And that's using Landsat 8. And also a lot of areas
you know any other private school?
Hello? Hello, can I continue? Okay, let me proceed. So when I looked at the visualization time frame of using 2018 July and 2018 still October, you could see there are a lot of areas that were red, but most of them are also green. There was a decline. However, when I continued 2018, 2019, there was an extreme decline. So I used the same time frame in my Sentinel-1 and used 2019 around. I couldn't find the image around July in Sentinel-1, so I used November, which was also still a drought season in that particular area. And one of the interesting facts is all the bare rocks, because I'm using VHVV, all the bare rocks are appearing to have vegetated areas. And this is something that one has to be keen when I didn't know much classification, but one of the things I'm coming to understand when you use Sentinel-1, you have to be very keen, because when you observe using Sentinel, when you observe with Sentinel-2 or Landsat 8, bare rocks look like bare rocks, they don't have vegetation. However, because of the capability of Sentinel-1, it looks, some bare rocks can have vegetation, and also so they appear like red, but because there's a decrease in the size of the vegetation around that particular area. One of the things also that maybe I'm looking into currently, the type of index I used. Remember at the beginning of my index, as I showed you here, my index one, I used NDVI, that's VH minus VV, VH plus VV. But as I was discussing with Edward, he told me there's a recent development of new index using Sentinel-1 for radar data for vegetation index. So it's one of those things that I said I'm still continuing with this analysis, because it would be interesting to see without using this backscatter or an enhanced value of vegetation index using Sentinel-1, whether it will be improved. Then I proceed into one of my conclusions is using both Sentinel and Landsat 8, the capability of describing the vegetation greenness and the vitality at the beginning and the end of the season. However, one of the factors that I'm realizing, especially looking at this Tanzanian area, is that some of the seasons, especially if you look at April, there's a lot of greenness, there's precipitation. This can affect, because sometimes the wetness of the area, even without training or human activities, when there's wetness, it tends to affect the backscatter intensity or the radiation of when using Sentinel-1. So these are a few factors that I was not able to look into, but I'm still continuing with it. And then also because of the presence of sparse vegetation that's open and not very, especially when it comes to the green vegetation, there would be variation in the backscatter intensity. One of the analyses that actually is currently loading is to look at the plots of the time series plots of Sentinel-1 and also Landsat 8. Yes. So this is just a little bit of what I've done, but I want to do an improved analysis using the vegetation, using the index of radar that I was discussing with Edward, that maybe he'll present or he'll tell us now, and then you can be able to utilize it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella. Very sorry that in your background, there are some people who've decided to make your life so miserable, but we are happy that you presented. Would you perhaps send us a PDF in the chat or in the WhatsApp group? Some of us joined late, but they are happy to ask any questions. So any questions from any one of you for Stella? Okay. So thank you very much. I think this topic of Miombo woodlands is something we've, I think Kelaboge, you looked at some of this work, one of your postdoc students. I remember it was a topic for colleagues, the University of Bonn and the University of Dar es Salaam professors. Okay, so David wanted to comment.
Thank you so much, Daktari. Thank you, Stella, for the presentation. Did you have a chance to have a look, do a statistical comparison of both? Like which one is more responsive, especially to vegetation changes?
That's a good question. I was only able to do that for Landsat 8. However, for Sentinel-1, not yet. Probably it's one of the reasons I still want to reach more to Edward to help me on, because I looked at the notebook that's currently, I couldn't be able to do the statistical analysis timetable. So it's something that I'm still looking into. Probably next week, if I will be able to implement the new index and have the statistical analysis, there can be an improvement of the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone who wants to comment, please have a look, have a go at it. Kelaboke.
Yes, thank you so much, Stella, for the very informative presentations, especially when it comes to differences in the two imagery or satellite, the Sentinel and the Landsat 8. It's quite, because we are also working on that in our case study for the Okavango Delta. We realized that there's a difference when you actually use Sentinel as compared to Landsat 8. So it's quite good to also notice that you realize the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kilaboge. I think there was a different student of yours was doing something on drought monitoring using Sentinel 1 and 2. This was Stella's colleague. Could that be Mudhoni, the one at TCP postdoc?
Yes. Oh, yes. Stella, the other Stella.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you said your student, I was thinking now is Stella my student. Yes, Stella is doing a great job on that one. So yeah, that is why I said, well, she actually did the analysis on using the Sentinel for flooding. And then my part now is to look at the drought, like Stella is looking at the drought. So we engaged Stella at ECP to actually look at, we're using also multi-source imagery. Like we intend to use also Sentinel, and not only Sentinel, but initially we wanted to use Rapid Eye, which we are still, yes, we still have to figure out how to actually get close dates, because the difference with are just too much in terms of spatial coverage and temporal coverage, because we're dealing with a very, very large area. As you know, Kenneth, the Okavango Delta Basin is huge, and yeah, we'll have to figure out how to actually narrow the temporal coverage in terms of looking at Rapid Eye.
Thank you so much, Raquel Bugi. Also, I remember a colleague of mine put her name in the chat, Dr. Mercy Ojoy. She did something on this particular area. I was just posting the context in terms of what Stella is looking at, and possibly if she wants to read more from others.
Oh, Mercy was also at Bonn, is she?
Yes, yes.
Oh, yes, I know her. No, yeah, I'll look at her articles.
Yeah,
I know her too. I met her at the ITC. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I know her. And she told me she was staying in Cape Town, I think last time.
Yeah, KwaZulu Natal.
Yeah, KwaZulu Natal. Yeah, I know her. Yeah.
But
she's now in South Africa.
No, she finished South Africa now. She was based in Pretoria.
Yes.
Then now she's working in Kenya with ICRAF.
Oh wow.
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice. Yeah, it's a small world. I was also at ICRAF at one point.
Yes.
I was working with Marcus and Keith Shepherd.
Exactly.
Keith, Dr. Keith Shepherd. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'll catch up with her.
Yes, and also David Ongo must have assisted Mercy with some of the projects. David Ongo at RCMAD. So any other question for Stella? At least it was not a PhD thesis, it was just familiarization. So Stella, don't worry. Ours was just comments to hear.
Yeah, I want to know about the rock. Stella, what is happening with the rock again? I want to hear.
Maybe, okay, so I was trying to understand why is it when you use Sentinel-1, a lot of vegetation, when there's drought, a rock can look very dry, but there's vegetation that's beneath it. So one of the things that I understood is that when you're using Sentinel-1, areas that still have vegetation will be able to be detected, especially if you do classification. And if you, for example, use, Landsat 8 or Sentinel-1, it will either put those places are not having vegetation, or so for, in my case, those areas that were looking green, no, the areas in my Landsat 8 that were looking very red all throughout, and the areas when I compare them with Sentinel-1, some of them appeared green, and this is because the rock still had some little bit of vegetation. So it's one of those things, like, I'm trying to still understand, is it because of the capability of using Sentinel-1 that it can still it has the ability to detect even the smallest type of vegetation, or is it because of the wetness of the area, that's why there was a variation? So it's still something that I'm looking into, but I'm hoping by next week I may be able to fully understand. Yes, then maybe I'll be able to share with you again.
Thank you so much, Stella, and also thank you very much for this discussion. So my colleague Edward, do you have any update for the discussion?
Yes, Ken. Hello, everyone. Great presentation also on the work that Stella has done, which is actually very great. So Digital Earth Africa continues to also improve the functions and formulas for the data sets that we have within the platform. So just as Stella was able to use the NDVI formula for satellite for the radar image, right now as we speak, we have the radar vegetation index available on the sandbox, which we can use. We also have the vertical dual depolarization index, the cross polarization, the purity, the theta, and the entropy. All these indices can actually help in the vegetation index as with what Stella was doing using the radar images. So when you go into the sandbox, you can work with these indices and share the results with us, just as Stella has done, and also find some interesting findings from it. And if you encounter any challenge, please don't hesitate to contact any of us here, either Joseph, Kenneth, or I. Contact any of us here. We are here to support you to be able to utilize this platform and also use it for monitoring within the areas that you are working with, just as you continue to work with Stella, David, Dr. Kelly Bugili, Wallace, and all of you. So I think all these indices are there for us to use it, and it will be great for us to just pick any area of interest, areas that we like, that we've been working with. Then we can actually start doing the comparison between the different satellite images, and the results that we can actually get them out to be will be of interest for further development on these ones. So right now that the radar indices is ready, just as we have the optical indices, let's go into the sandbox and try working with it. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Ken.
Thank you so much, Edward, for this update. Also, I wish to ask if David has an update about the RIC conference that they're currently working on, conducting, help.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I think we will be live in the next 30 minutes. So far, we had our presentation yesterday regarding activities that there was water observation from space. Thank you, Edward. I saw you joined. And Dr. Mubea also presented about crop mask, I believe. Today we have another session. We'll be having a booth for DA, I think, for networking and chatting. We'll be having another one tomorrow. We have other sessions as well regarding posters. So we'll be presenting few posters that have been emanating from activities related to DA Africa. In addition to that, yesterday's session, we had some very great leaders in the field of geoinformation who came and talked to us about the trends. I think the most important takeaway was that we had two presenters under the plenary. We had Steve Ramaj and Andiso as well, who sits within the technical advisory board committee of the DA who came up and presented some of the activities that all of them enjoying together. And this one made a lot of recommendation about what DA is doing and how we can engage. Hopefully, most of you will be able to join us today as well, starting in the next 30 minutes. We continue with the discussion about EO. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, David. Actually, the topic is there, Earth observations and GIS tools in climate adaptation and mitigation, which will start at 2:50. And also for those who don't register, we'll be able to send the live YouTube link in this WhatsApp group of ours. So any update from any one of us? Wallace, the microphone yours, sir.
Good day to all. I must say great work done by Stella. And as we also go through our census, we are coming to an end of it. So hopefully in the weeks to come, I will also be able to present what I've done so far. Then we'll see how best we can take the ED Africa to a next level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wallace. And I know now you moved to the new office. You're no longer near the ocean.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Bashiru, any update for us? So no comment.
Can you muted yourself? Okay.
Yeah, I was asking if Bashiru has any comment for us. Or Moshoshoe. And last but not least, Yosef, our colleague Yosef.
Thank you, Ken. First of all, I want to attend RCMRD conference. Nowadays, I'm very busy. So I do apologize and I miss it. And the update that today Sandbox had reached 1,000 active users. So it's a great achievement to mention to everybody. And if we increase the awareness and using those data, I think we could reach millions in a few years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yosef. This means if we go past 1,000, we'll be able to reach everybody and leave no one behind. This is only possible through everyone's participation and championships. So I think next week we have a volunteer for presentation, possibly Dr. Kireboge will have a presentation, but she mentioned she'll be on off leave next week. Yeah. So I believe one of us will be able to volunteer, if not possible, everybody. But I know everyone is busy with the RCMRD conference and other activities. So have you been, Mr. Moshosho, in Lesotho?
I've been doing great.
Thank you so much. And also thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully next week we'll have some more presentations to keep us more entertained. But now
I think,
yes.
Kenneth, I think you should actually let Mr. Moshosho to present. It's interesting, his work also.
Yes. Is he ready today or next week? Because I think
no, I'm not ready because right now I'm trying to come up with the I'm trying to analyze the water quality. So now what I want to do is I want to see how the water extent and the water and the water quality indexes change with time.
Thank you, Sir Moshosho. And also we have David Ongo with you in that group of champions who'll be able to support you once you ask any questions, myself and Edward and David. Thank you so much also, Moshosho, for joining us. And also thank you everybody for joining us. And let's look at the